Hi, this is Marnell Sample bringing you another vocal tip. In today's vocal tip, we will be further exploring the topic of how to sing from the diaphragm. More specifically, we'll be getting into how to push down and out from the diaphragm when you need a little bit more support or some extra power in your voice. If you haven't already seen the other two videos in this series, be sure to check them out first. I've left links to them in the description section underneath this video. So let's begin. So what exactly is pushing down and out? This is a sensation, a phenomena that singers will experience oftentimes when you're singing really strong notes, or when you're trying to hold out a note for a long time, or when you're singing higher notes within the context of a phrase. Many teachers have tried to address this in various ways. Some of the common uses of imagery to address this include thinking of like you're pushing for a bowel movement. Another one is think like you're pushing something really heavy, or like you're trying to lift up something really heavy. While those are all getting at the same thing, I would like to leave you with something a little bit more concrete that you can feel and experience. So what we're going to do is a bit of an extension of the first video. So take your fingers like this. I'm going to place them on your sides. Keep in mind your fingers should be right below where your ribs is. So if you feel for your ribs, okay, rib here, and then as soon as you hit the spot where your last rib is at, that's where your fingers should be touching at. Your fingers should not be all the way down here at your pelvis. It should be up here. So find your love handles again right below your ribs, right below your lowest ribs. And what I want you to do is puff out your cheeks like this. And you're going to make sure you keep your lips together, because you're not blowing out air with this. You're using your lips to stop the air. And then you're puffing out your cheeks from there. So once again. And now what you will do is try to puff out your cheeks as powerfully as you can, as though you're trying to blow out candles on a cake that are 10 feet away. But remember, we're not actually blowing out any air, but you're trying to blow out air. So like this. And what you should feel when you do this, if you do it correctly, you should feel engagement of muscles right there where your fingers are at. So right along in here, slightly on the front side, and even going around to your back side where your thumb is at. This is the pushing down and out sensation that is often talked about in singing. What I want you to try now is we're going to do a little experiment. So what I want you to do is hold your chest up high like this and still keep your hands on your sides. And then try to puff out your cheeks again. And notice how much you can push down and out. Especially pay attention to how much you can push down and out from your back, where your thumbs are at. Now this time, I want you to do it differently. I want you to round your upper back like this. Almost like you have a hunchback. And then try the same thing again. So puff out your cheeks. And then compare this way with being more upright with your chest. What you should notice is that when you're a little bit more hunched over like this, you can push out in your back much more. Once again, as I've said before, singing from the diaphragm should really be called singing from your back, because your back is what will really engage very, very strongly when the diaphragm engages strongly. Now we're going to try it another way this time. Another variable. So once again, feel for your love handles right below your ribs. This time what I want you to do is look up, as though looking up towards the ceiling. And then try to puff out your cheeks, so like this. And notice how much you can push down and out here, especially in your back when you do that. And then to contrast that, we're going to try this other motion with the head. Bring your chin down towards your sternum like this. I'll show you from the side. Looks like this. So your chin is trying to touch your sternum here. And then from this position, try to puff out your cheeks and notice how much you can push down and out, especially in your back here. What you should notice with this one is when your head is down, more like this, you can push out in your back much more strongly. Now, we can go to our third variable, which will affect this, and that's how you're holding your pelvis, your pelvic tilt. There are two types of tilts that you can have to your pelvis. Something called an anterior pelvic tilt, and that looks like this. From the side, that's when your butt is sticking out more like this, and you get an arch in your lower back. This is called an anterior pelvic tilt. Then you also have a posterior pelvic tilt, which is the opposite of that. That's when your lower back flattens out and your pelvis curls under you a bit like this. So what I want you to do is go into the anterior pelvic tilt first. So let your pelvis tip forward and let your butt go back and your lower back start to arch. Then feel here again where your love handles are, and then try to puff out your cheeks and take note of how much you can push out, especially in your back. So like this. Now try it again, but this time going into a posterior pelvic tilt. So let the lower back flatten out, let your pelvis curl under you, and you might even have to let your knees bend slightly to get into this. More than likely you'll have to. Put your hands here, squeeze again, and then try to blow out and puff your cheeks out as hard as you can. What you should notice with that is when you go into the posterior pelvic tilt, that allows you to kick in from your lower back muscles much more compared to being in the anterior pelvic tilt. So what we were looking for is, what is this position in our body that allows us to push down and out the most strongly? We need to know what that position is. So it's a combination of letting the chest fall just a little bit, so you round over a little bit, bringing the chin down to the neck, and then going into a bit of a posterior pelvic tilt. So letting your lower back flatten out and letting your pelvis curl under you like this. And from this position, I want you to try puffing out your cheeks as strongly as you can. You should find that you get not only a strong contraction in your back muscles, but that your lower abs will also contract very strongly when you do this too. The lower abs below the navel. Now what I want you to do, now that you've found what this down and out pushing sensation is, see if you can create that same sensation but without puffing out your cheeks. So you're still basically going to breathe in and hold your breath, but then try to find it. Make sure when you do this, your mouth is closed and your tongue is against the roof of your mouth. So you're just going to sit here just like this. And look to see if you can recreate that exact same sensation like when you puff out your cheeks. You might need to alternate back and forth between the two in order to get it concretely. Like this. Okay, I have a little bit more there. Let me see if I can find it to the same degree. And this is where body position is going to come in a bit. Because if you start to get into a little bit of an anterior pelvic tilt or raise your chest too much, you won't be able to push out quite to the same degree. Once you've found that, label that as pushing out to 100%. So now what I want you to do is see if you can maintain that down and out pushing sensation here for a count of maybe 5 to 10 seconds. So like this. So taking your breath, and then push down and out, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going consistently. What will normally happen is after you start pushing down and out for a second or two, then it's going to want to relax. Don't let it relax. You got to keep a steady down and out push where your fingers are at. This is the sensation that you should be feeling in your body as you are singing a phrase. This is your body connection, and this is your support kicking in. So now we're going to combine this with sound. And it's going to be a little sound like this. Pretend like you have just eaten something really, really delicious, and you're like, it's so good. That kind of a sound. Make that go, That's just like that. Make sure it's not with an H in front of it, like you're thinking, like That will not help you with this. It has to be no H at all. So, come here, and what you're going to do is push down and out, but only to a degree of maybe 50% of your maximal push that you can get here. And start holding that out for a couple of seconds, and after you've held it out for a couple of seconds, make this sound. So try that. Breathe in, inhale your air, push down and out, 50% for a couple of seconds, and then go When you do this, you should feel that when you're making the that there's still a steady down and out push where your hands are, but it should feel comfortable in your throat. If it feels uncomfortable in your throat when you're doing this, then you might need to decrease the amount you're pushing out. Instead of 50%, maybe try it to 40%, or maybe even 30%. You will play around with this a little bit until you find the degree of pushing out that feels most comfortable to you in your voice. Once you found that, then see if you can do it on a little slide. So just like that. And as you're doing this, you should feel a steady, constant down and out push here. Once you've got that going, then try it on an E. So if you can go, breathe in, start pushing out before you even make sound. E. 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 Can you do it just like that? Just find whatever's comfortable for you. Slide around on it a little bit. Try different pitches. And just make sure you're maintaining a constant, steady down and out push here. If it gets like this, then that means that you started pushing too hard, too soon before you made sound. You need to back off just a little bit. Once you've got that going, then you can try applying this idea to either simple scales that you're singing or a phrase or two from a song, just to get a sense of how this works. So, the keys to keep in mind are start pushing down and out here at the sides before you even make sound, and then maintain a steady down and out push as you are singing the entire phrase. If you get tight in your throat when you're doing this, then back off the degree at which you are pushing down and out at the start of the sound, and that should alleviate some of the excessive tension here. Keep in mind that when you're lower in your range, like closer to your speaking range, you will not be able to push down and out here as strongly as when you're higher. When you're higher, it can take a lot more of that push and a lot more of that pressure. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, be sure to like it, subscribe, and share it on Facebook, Twitter, your blog, so that way others can continue to benefit from it. Thanks for watching.